Hey guys, welcome back. So now we're getting back into Cosmic Ghost Rider Volume 2 by Stephanie Phillips, to where from here we begin to unwrap more of the mystery about this second Cosmic Ghost Rider, with us finding out who he is. But before we get into it, if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to catch the spills every week, and don't forget to hit that bell up top so we can squat up in the comments for the first hour. Alright, so for this one, we pick up right where we had left off, with Valkyrie confronting the second Cosmic Ghost Rider, who, like we'd seen, aside from him going on his crazy killing spree and making his rounds across the galaxy, his travels had eventually brought him to this fueling station X987, with him looking for Omnian Priest so that he could ask him some questions pertaining to resurrection. And as we make our way through this, we're gonna learn more about what this second Cosmic Ghost Rider is trying to figure out, because there's some questions that he's been trying to figure out himself. But with Valkyrie coming here, she lets him know that finding him was pretty easy, because all she had to do was follow the trail of death that he had left behind that had stretched across nearly every sector of the galaxy. And the crazy thing is, with him hearing that, he's a bit disappointed because he was hoping that he had already reached every sector. So in response, he lets Valkyrie know that he's gonna make an adjustment and he's gonna hit every one. But in the middle of this fight between the second Cosmic Ghost Rider and Valkyrie, out of nowhere, his powers just short out. And it's here where Valkyrie gives him a bit of a speech where we find out that this is also Frank Castle, because it's here where she references what we'd seen in Cosmic Ghost Rider Volume 1, which began with Frank, who woke up in Valhalla after being killed by the Fallen One during Thanos wins at the conclusion of the 2016 Thanos series. But in this moment, Valkyrie really only says that Frank wasn't worthy of his acceptance into Valhalla, with her looking at this Frank and the things that he's done. But the interesting thing about this is that for us, for the reader, is that we've been following Frank from Thanos wins to Cosmic Ghost Rider Volume 1 and beyond, and the story of the original Cosmic Ghost Riders continued. But for that alternate future, which was eventually erased by Thanos, with him going back in time and not becoming that future version of himself, it now begs the question if the events from that series somehow created a second Cosmic Ghost Rider who also made it from that timeline to this one, much like the younger Thanos and the original Cosmic Ghost Rider, which is one of those things when you think about it, it wouldn't be too far of a stretch since Odin brought the original Cosmic Ghost Rider back, and recently in the Thor series, a lot of Odin's deeds have just gone left. So it's something to think about. But as it stands at this point, we don't know anything else about the Cosmic Ghost Rider. All we know is that he's another Frank Castle. And just to be clear, there's no confirmation that any of this ties to Thanos wins, but I just wanted to point out some of the similarities and coincidences, so it's something to think about as we make our way through. But then it's here where we jump over to the other Frank, the original Cosmic Ghost Rider, who at this same point in time is still dealing with Starstalker, who was hired by the Shi'ar Empire to bring in Frank Castle alive. But it's caused a bit of confusion since not too many people know that there are two Cosmic Ghost Riders in two different places. But at this point, with Frank Castle, Cosmic Ghost Rider number 1, his powers also went out on him, giving Starstalker the upper hand. And it's here where he tells Frank, "I am Monarch Starstalker, the bounty hunter who brought down the Cosmic Ghost Rider." But in response, Frank just laughs at the name because it sounds like something a kid would name his pet hamster, just because it sounds cool. And I mean, I can see that, because to me, the name Starstalker, it sounds like more of a 80s rock band with one member. But for Starstalker, he really doesn't appreciate the disrespect, and he tells Cosmic Ghost Rider that his name isn't that much more mature. But then while Starstalker is distracted by this silly argument, Axel jumps on his back and she bites this dude's ear, while Frank tries to transform back, and he nearly does for a moment, but he can't effectively go back to full Flaming Skull, almost as if he's stuck to this near close to in-between state. But as he's trying to power up fully, Starstalker gets free from Axel, and once again he expresses that he doesn't mind killing her. But while he's taking a second to talk about it, he is then shot by Frank, and this gives Frank and Axel a moment for the two of them to get out of there before Starstalker gets back up. But with Frank number 1 telling Axel, "Let's go," we then jump over to Cosmic Ghost Rider number 2, who's also saying, "Let's go," but more like, let's fight. Let's do this. But at this point with Valkyrie, she's trying to figure out what's going on with Frank Castle, because this doesn't seem to be the Frank that she's been told so many things about. Like, sure, he's not perfect, but prior to all of this, she could understand at one point how the Frank that she'd heard about had been a warrior who was given the honor of being accepted into Valhalla. So for Valkyrie at this point, she's trying to figure out why this Frank isn't matching up with the things that she was told. So she asks him, "Why are you doing this?" Because she's trying to understand if there's something going on here that she doesn't see. But in response, the writer just tells her that for the first time he truly feels free, and now with or without his powers, he's finally realizing who he was meant to be. But then suddenly the Omnian priest, who's just been here the whole time, he picks up one of the writer's guns and he tells him, "Don't make me shoot." But with the writer not taking the priest serious, he charges after the priest only to then catch 2 shots in the chest. And under normal circumstances, or as normal as they could be for a cosmic ghost rider, these shots wouldn't have fazed him. But as it stands now, with his powers going in and out, he now sees that his armor is taking damage, which comes to him as a surprise. And Valkyrie lets him know that he should stop fighting for his own good, because as a Valkyrie, she can see that the death orb over his head is of a significant size. So she tells him to give it up, and she lets him know that his fate is closer than he thinks. But this second Frank, he's more or less just like, "Nah, I'm good." So he then jumps the counter, hits the airlock, and makes his escape, with him knowing that doing this will buy him some time because Valkyrie will be too busy saving the priest, which is precisely what happens. But also for Jane, with her saving the priest and using the all weapon to close back the airlock while she pulls him in, she then asks the question that I'm sure everybody's thinking. And I mean, I was thinking it at least. But once they're back inside, she's like, why is that button even there? Why does it even exist? And I mean, it's a very logical question. But from here, where we go back to Frank and Axel, who are quickly making their escape from Starstalker, it's here where we see that Starstalker has regained his consciousness. And with him seeing them leave, he decides to let them go. And it's not anything like him having a change of heart or all of a sudden being like, "Ooh, well, I don't want that bounty." But instead, it's because he's figured out something about Frank's powers, or really lack thereof, that Frank hasn't figured out about himself just yet. And we discover what that is here when his falcon Ulysses asks if he wants him to follow them, and he tells Ulysses no. And from here, because Starstalker and Ulysses are neurally connected, the two of them kind of explain this together. But the reason why he's letting Frank go is because he notices that the writer is not able to access and sustain his full power, but for a brief moment. And with him saying this, Ulysses does the math, and he tells him that it's 3.5 minutes that Frank has. And even right now, with Frank getting away on his bike, he's using that power because his bike is connected. So in the next few minutes, Frank's gonna have to stop somewhere, and there's a high probability that he's gonna stop at one of 3 fueling stations nearby. And come to find out, this is precisely Frank's situation. And when we jump back over to him, he's telling Axel that he needs to stop and recharge. But it's not like he knows that it's exactly 3.5 minutes. But he does know that using the armor and using the bike, it's spending his power, and he can only use it briefly. But it's here where we see the two of them make their way to a fueling station, just like Starstalker and Ulysses had said. And for Frank, at this point, his plan is the same as before. He wants to get Axel out of here and away from him so that she doesn't have to worry about getting mixed up with Starstalker or any other bounty hunters that are really coming after Frank. But when they get to this fueling station, the first thing that comes to Axel's attention is that nobody's here. And with them walking around and peeping in some of the windows, suddenly Frank sees Valkyrie's reflection just behind him, getting ready to bop him in the head with the all weapon. But fortunately, he's able to duck just in time. And as it turns out, this is fueling station X987, the same fueling station where we just seen Valkyrie fighting the previous cosmic ghost rider. And this is the reason why Valkyrie believes that this Frank is the same guy. But in the middle of her attack, the Omnian priest tells her to stop because this isn't the same rider who tried to kill her. And she's able to confirm this when the priest tells her to open her eyes. So she does, and she sees right away that the priest's death orb above his head is substantially smaller, meaning that his death is no longer imminent. Even though on the flip side, for the Frank that's here, his death orb is huge, just like the second cosmic ghost rider, which is also why Valkyrie believed that they were the same person. But at this point, for everyone here, the idea of there being 2 cosmic ghost riders is completely new. So with them trying to figure out how this is even possible, Valkyrie assumes that it's a clone, but the Omnian priest tells them that he doesn't think that's the case, because when he spoke to the second cosmic ghost rider, the rider asked him about reincarnation. He wanted to know if his past life could influence the present, and if there was a universal connection between all our lives. And when the priest goes on to tell Frank about the other rider having nightmares or visions, where he saw a different version of himself in them. And hearing this immediately makes Frank think of the nightmares/visions that he's been having, which once again has me thinking that this second cosmic ghost rider had came here from a reality that no longer exists. But on top of that, it also has me thinking that it's possible that there's some kind of multiversal connection between the different cosmic ghost riders that has linked them together somehow. But for Frank, with him hearing about this other cosmic ghost rider having these visions and these nightmares, it reminds him of the things that he'd seen in his nightmares too. And Valkyrie goes on to let Frank know that visions aren't always limited to what our eyes can perceive. And she goes on to tell him how she can see things that others can't, like for example, death approaching someone. and she lets him know this is how she knew he wasn't the other cosmic ghost rider, because the priest's orb shrank substantially, meaning that around this Frank the priest was safe. But also with seeing these orbs, this is how she tracked down the other cosmic ghost rider, with the trail of death that he had left behind. But then when she goes on to tell Frank about how his death orb is still extremely huge, meaning that he is still in danger, and suddenly out of nowhere he is hit with excruciating pain that brings him to his knees. And when this happens for Frank, we're also shown that the same thing is happening to the second cosmic ghost rider, which now just further confirms that the two of these guys are connected. And so now real quick, I want to give a special shout out to all the patrons. Thank you guys for all of your support. And for anyone who's new here who wants more information on how to support the channel, I got a link below where you can go to patreon.com/Dopespill. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and we'll do it again on the next one. Alright, later.